Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this TFM Professional Development webinar today. We will be looking at how to maximize your return on investment with your influencer marketing strategies. For those of you who may be watching this on YouTube at a later date, please click like and subscribe. Similarly, if you're listening to this on one of the podcast platforms, give us a like. For those of you listening to this live, there is a chat box function that if you have any comments or any questions, please pop them in there. If you absolutely definitely want to get your question asked, there is a little blue raise your hand function. If you put that, if you click on that, then we'll be able to actually put your audio live and you'll be able to speak to our panel directory. So we will do our best to try and answer as many questions as we can today, but if not, you can always email us afterwards and we can always link you through to some of our speakers depending on what the inquiry is. Just to give you a rough idea of how the event will run. So it'll run for about 60 minutes and the discussion points, if you could just pop them up for me. Oh, hang on, I've got control. Forgive me. These are the discussion points. So we will work our way through these. If there isn't anything, if there is stuff that you wanted to learn that isn't on this list, like I say, just use the chat box. My name is Dale, by the way. I'm one of the co-founders of the Fashion Network, and I will be your chair for the next 60 minutes. And also we've got a pretty wide and varied and experienced panel today. We have one apologies, by the way, from Viv Yao from Be Influence. She couldn't make it for various circumstances, but we do have a really good panel still. We have Joe Ellyat, who's co-founder of Komodo, which is a influencer marketing and talent management agency. Is that right, Joe?
That's correct.
Yep. We also have Francesca Scambler, who's head of talent at Gleam Futures. And Gleam is a talent-led media and entertainment business. Am I right with that?
You are indeed correct.
Last but not least, we have Brent Hetherington, who's vice president of Retail21.com, which is a dropship marketplace allowing influencers to connect with brands who want to dropship through their store frontages. Is that right, Brent?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So, like I say, we'll go on for the next, we'll probably talk for the next 20 minutes and then we'll probably open questions up to the floor. I'm just going to come off screen share for a second and I am going to launch a poll if I can. Scarlett, do you have access to the poll? Or if you do, can you bring it up? Here we go. So for all of you out there listening, can you just let us know who you are? So can you let us know if you're currently running an influencer marketing campaign at the moment, or if you're not running an influencer marketing campaign but would like to, and if you are an agency that runs influencer campaigns for clients, or if you're just joining to just take part, basically. So we'll give a few minutes while you do that, and then Scarlett will, when everyone's voted, will share the results. So we'll give that a few minutes. Okie doke. Here we go. So the overwhelming majority of you out there are not currently running an influencer marketing campaign, but would like to. So hopefully we'll be able to share some valuable insights for you guys today. So thanks for that. So anyway, I'm going to kick off with my first question. And the first thing I want to try and establish, I might come to you, Francesca, actually, firstly, just let us know. I mean, from our perspective, I always sort of see influencers as on one end of the scale, you get someone that's almost a model with a huge amount of following and they just look good, right the way through to someone who's got an opinion, or they're maybe a journalist or a stylist or something. Can you just explain to us sort of like where the value within an influencer lies, and if you can just elaborate a little bit on that.
It's such a huge question, and value is subjective, I suppose, so it depends who's asking the question. If you're a brand, I think it's tapping into a community of like-minded people that you're trying to access, or if you are trying to hear opinions on oppressed voices, then activism and tapping into that, that's something else. Or if you're going to get entertained and you're going to that person to view their content, it's all very, very different. But the value, I think that's why it's so important to have such a multifaceted an array of people and tapping into different people at different points for different reasons. Sorry, it's not really an answer. It's more of a, yeah, there's lots and lots of value and anyone can tap into anything.
Joe, do you want to pick up on that and just talk?
Yeah, agreed.
You know, how you see where the value lies, basically.
Definitely. And if we're sort of talking sort of product side of things, what you're effectively doing is sort of bringing a personality to the product. So rather than just a face and an image, when you're connecting with an influencer and their audience, then you're sort of aligning what they're promoting with that product, and their personality sort of comes through, creating sort of an affinity there. What you want to make sure is obviously the audience is aligned and the values are targeted in the right place. And I'm sure that's something we'll come into later, but I think the trust that people have for influencers now is becoming stronger and stronger. So I think we just need to sort of maintain that and make sure the audience is completely aligned with what sort of the voice you're giving out there.
And what's most important in the old days? It doesn't seem right saying in the old days we talk about influencer marketing, but in the earlier days, should we say, it was all about the volume of following, and sort of that kind of got found out a little bit. And then people talk about its engagement, but Francesca just talked about it's the value of their niche. I mean, what sort of those sorts of things? What do you focus on mostly? Is you know, obviously you can't not say that someone with a huge amount of following is not valuable, but where does that bear up against sort of like engagements and the fact that they may speak to a very good, valuable niche? How do you weigh all those sort of things up when you're designing the campaign, Joe?
So, yeah, I mean, it's a good question. And once again, you need to make sure you're tapping into sort of the right people, looking at your own goals. What you're trying to promote out there needs to be sort of come perfectly across with the talent you're aligning with. So doing your due diligence on who you are actually aligning with your product or with your service is massively important. I think at the beginning there was obviously a huge focus on following and reach, and that was the main thing. We drifted onto it needs to be an engaged following, and now we know that targeted audience is the most important thing. And whether that be macro, where the people with millions of followers obviously getting that reach out there, or obviously we've seen a big push recently in sort of more micro influencers who speak to a smaller community but are extremely effective in that. So I think you need to look at your goals. You need to have a clear vision and a brief that comes through with that. So it's a difficult one. It's obviously, as Francesca said, it's such a wide array, and each client is going to have a different sort of objective and what they're trying to achieve. So the influencers and the sort of talent that you're aligning with that, whether they be sort of an activist or a sportsman, need to come across there. So it's a long conversation. There's a lot of back and forth and sort of maintaining that message.
Francesca, you're nodding there. What's the main things that clients ask you for then? What are they after, in the sense of, you know, what they after out of a good influencer?
So the first question we always ask is, what's your objectives? What are you trying to achieve? And you can pretty much figure out early on whether that's a numerical thing and they're trying to get brand awareness and trying to get eyeballs on their piece of content, or are they trying to shift units? Are they trying to actually move the dial in terms of sales? Or am I trying to affiliate myself with a talent in their own right, and I want to do something cool, and I want to do something that's going to really shock the industry and be involved in that talent's journey and career? So establishing that at the forefront is exactly what Joe is just saying. But over the years, you've definitely seen it's such a measurable industry now, and it's very easy to see who's watching, how long for, did they rewind the content, are they watching it again, are they from America, the UK, what, like there's just so much data in this industry now that quite often the kind of evolution of this space, people have almost become so concentrated on data and the vanity metrics. And of course, engagement is incredibly vital to these sorts of campaigns, but also so is the content. and you've got to make sure that the content marries up and aligns with the brand's values just as much as the outcome does too. And as we always encourage brands to think content first, values, and then let the vanity metrics shoulder the whole campaign.
And do people come to you? Do they come to you more focused around, right, we need conversions, or this is a bit about brand awareness, or you know, what's sort of ratio between that? I mean, you know, some of the guys I always come across to when they're asking me, do I know any good talent agencies? And that we want to drive conversions, we want to drive sales,
right?
A lot, particularly from the fast fashion end of those things. But what do you find?
It's an amalgamation of everything, and I think that's why being so multifaceted in this space is key, because in the summer a brand might really want to build brand awareness so that when their winter clothes come out, that's when they push on sales. So it just completely depends what timeline that brand is in, and it's actually quite amazing that a brand could use maybe one talent to fulfill all of their objectives throughout the year. So maybe it's you're partnering with someone who's a household name, has a significant audience online, and you're doing the profile building throughout the year, and then maybe they are a cleaning brand and they want to really shift units in spring cleaning week in February, and that's when they dial up the potency and the shifting of units. So
can either of you actually just tell us what sort of, well, maybe I'll come back to you actually, Francesca, just what type of influencers have you got then? What's the difference? You know, you've got, I've had a look through your roster and it's quite wide and quite impressive, and you've got some old school sort of TV personalities, there are other sorts of personalities known for things like sport and what have you. How can you sort of classify what type of influence have you got, and what are they good for?
So we have so many different people from all different categories. I wouldn't maybe separate them into verticals in terms of like cleaning, beauty, comedy. I would more say we've got personalities, entrepreneurs, entertainers. Like they fit into those categories rather than because one person, you're such a diversity about you. You're not just one thing. You can talk about anything in your life. You could clean, you could cook, you can be interested in fashion, you could put beauty on. It's not just about that one, unless they specifically just talk about that one niche.
Okay. And then Brent, I'm going to bring you in here as well. So on the platform, what sort of influences do you find that you work with? Do you approach it the same sort of way, or is it just, are you just looking, how does it work with you? And tell us a little bit about some of the influences that you have on the platform already.
Yeah, the platform is mainly geared to the lifestyle fashion side of things, and they range all over the board. We see a lot of success within jewelry and usually higher fashion, not fast fashion, where the margins are a little bit higher, but it runs the whole gamut.
Then Joe, just coming back to you then. So in terms of when you're designing a campaign and you're identifying influencers, how do you go about that then? You know, obviously, like what Francesca is saying, she doesn't divide it into verticals. So what is it? Is it a sort of a gut feeling thing, or is it more matrix thing? How do you sort of identify the best people for the job?
So yeah, I mean, there's a few ways you go about it. Obviously, you have a network of influencers that you know within your remit, and so even sort of if I'm setting up a campaign and I know Francesca, for example, I'll get in touch and we have specific objectives that we want to hit for this campaign, and you're looking at building sort of a diverse group. You want to be as inclusive as possible, but with the core audience sort of reaching the same values. So building out the campaign is a lot of back and forth. We have searching platforms, so we'll go dive into the back end, the audience, making sure that's aligned, and then doing your due diligence. Does this specific talent usually talk about this kind of product? Have they worked with sort of too many competitors before, or is this completely a separate entity for them, whereby their audience might look at it and think, well, this isn't quite normal, and it needs to be sort of authentic to them. So I think there's quite a lot that goes into sort of building out the right personalities for the campaign, and depending on the scale you're looking at. If it's a smaller campaign, and as Francesca said, you might be looking at one ambassador who would be speaking about the the product for over a period of time, which builds that brand affinity, or you might be working on a larger scale campaign where you're spreading the message far and wide. So you're looking at, you know, what the overall goal is, and trying to marry up a combination of the two we find sort of the most effective.
Just had an interesting question come in here from Aparajita, if I pronounced that right. Forgive me if I haven't. Question for Joe, actually. How far into the future should you see while creating a brief for one campaign? Can you talk to us a little bit about timescales, Joe? And then I might bring Francesca in on that as well.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, it's often going to come down to sort of the budgets you're dealing with. I think my word of advice would be to not just look to dip your toe into influencer marketing. If you're going to get into influencer marketing, you need to invest and have a long-term strategy. So you look at one campaign, potentially, say this runs over 2 months, activating a number of talent, but with a view to reassess, report, and then target the rest of the year. What are your key objectives for the year? What are your key moments? So whether it be spring, summer, Valentine's Day might be a huge thing. You need to plan ahead and when you want to see that spike, and sort of get content around that, and obviously get the word out there before that. So you need to be constantly thinking about it and looking into the future, and refining it. If you see success within one vertical and that's proving extremely well for you, then you carry on, sort of reinvest, hone in on that sort of area. But I'd say looking at your key points for the year and strategizing across that, working on a content plan.
Francesca, can I bring you in on that as well? So Joe says, don't tip your toe into the water. If you're going to do it properly. Is there any occasions where you've actually told that to clients and said, look, you know, come back when you're ready, sort of thing? Or, you know, do you want to just follow on from that a little bit?
Yeah, everyone asks for a test, but we don't need to test it. It works. It's proven, proof of concept. I would say, like, something quite strongly that I believe social marketing should be in every single CMO's agenda for marketing. And if you're a brand that's customer base interacts on social media and they're not turning on the TV, or they spend the majority of their time on these platforms, then you should be speaking to them through those platforms. So I think it's a really, really key part of a business plan for a lot of brands. And it shouldn't be an afterthought. It should be right up at the beginning. This is how corner off, siphon off, how much am I going to spend in this area? And then build it out through the campaign.
And what do you, how can I put this? So what do you like from a client? When you get a client that you think, right, they're perfect to work with, they know what they're dealing with, they know what they want. What does that look like? You know, what's your ideal client look like then in that respect? I'm assuming they've obviously got a decent budget, would be that one thing, but what other things do you look at, Francesca? You think, right, great, these guys are great to work with. Can you give us some good examples, for example?
Yeah, I'm looking for, well, when I was talent manager, I used to look for partners. I don't want my talent doing loads and loads of ad hoc partnerships. They're great. They keep the pink slips coming in, and they're going over and over again. They you can earn a decent revenue through that. But I'm looking for partners that add value to the talent's career and vice versa. Mm-hmm. So it's a two-way relationship. It's a two-way thing. So quite often people, especially when you're a brand ambassador for someone and you're the face of their brand, I would sit down with them and present the talent strategy and your career strategy. How long are you going to be with us? Say they're 12-month brand ambassadorship. We present that 12-year career strategy for that talent, and they would present their 1-year marketing plan for them, and we would ebb and flow between each other's campaigns. So if they had something that really aligned with our career strategy, we would have conversations about that and piggyback off one another. And also, value is not always financial, especially to a talent manager. We sit down at the beginning of every year and create a whole business plan for that talent. And the majority of it isn't the financial, like, they're not sitting down and going, I want to make £1 million. It's, I want to be a household name, or I would like to do some charity work with so-and-so. And it's how that brand might have access to certain things that we don't. Maybe it's PR and press, and they got opportunities for us to get a column in a magazine. And that's a huge win for that talent's career strategy. It's about understanding one another, and having that really deep relationship.
See Joe nodding away furiously in my bottom left-hand corner anyway. And Brent, you have something to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, in our experience with our platform, the most successful influencers are the ones that frame their content on their shop and make it unique to them. So if they have a shop and they take individualized pictures and videos with the products that they're selling and that they're known for, I think it makes them more authentic. We work with an influencer in North America. Her name is Isabel Rasico, and she's known for jewelry. And she takes a lot of pictures with jewelry that she's selling, and her passion that comes through in those pictures is that passion that makes her followers want to buy that jewelry. And we've seen her have a lot of success with, taking on something like that.
Does anybody want to respond to that, or I'll move on to my next question if not, which is actually going to come back to Brent, believe it or not. So I just want to talk a little bit about ways to work with influencers, and obviously, most influencers are not going to say no to pay to post. So obviously one way of doing it is, you pay them to create content and to post content and work with clients, etc. The other thing is obviously affiliate marketing. And then obviously the third thing is, as I think Francesca and I, we've had these conversations about many talent now are trying to develop their own brands and some are trying to develop their own stores. So I just want to talk a little bit about ways of working and the different models of working. And we're going to come back to Brent on this actually. So Brent, I believe eTail21 comes from an affiliate background originally, is that right? Can you just talk us through about the difference between the affiliates and sort of what you guys are doing in the sense of actually enabling influencers to have stores?
Yeah. So affiliate marketing is typically where people would get an affiliate link and send traffic to a different site to purchase. And we started in that model for many years ago. And what we have evolved to is that we help online retailers and influencers to create their own shop, to create their own brand. And then we partner with the various brands that are out there and bring them on board to our platform. And then the influencers are able to advertise those brands in their own shop and build their own brand. And then when an order comes through, it pops through our platform to the brand, who sends the order directly to the customer. That's what drop shipping is. But the actual relationship is with the influencer and the customer, as opposed to the influencer sending that particular customer to a brand shop, which would be an affiliate relationship. So they keep the customers circular within their shop.
So we can effectively curate a nice, it's almost like virtual merchandising in a way, rather than
they can merchandise their own shop with the products that they want. And sometimes affiliate marketing is a little bit jarring when you are sending your followers or your to different shops, because every shop looks different. So if you can keep one look, one brand, one shopping experience all on one particular shop, it keeps your followers engaged with your brand and keeps them, within your realm.
And then just one quick technical question, and I'll come over to Francesca again. The affiliate thing, my understanding is, because I've done a bit of affiliate marketing back in the early days of the Fashion Network, and you're saying then it's a more difficult thing to do for influencers. I know this talk is more aimed at sort of brands and retailers, but it is something to do with cookie software now. It's not, a lot of influencers are losing the tracking code. Is that right? Or...
Yeah, you can. I think it's called a traffic leak, where you go to a site and you send your customer or your potential customer to a different site, and it's possible that that particular cookie or link code could get lost, and then they're not going to get credited for that particular sale. And it's more difficult to independently verify that you've lost that particular customer, as opposed to if they're on your own shop per se, they can't leave your shop. well, they can leave your shop, but I mean, they're gonna shop within your shop, and every single sale in your shop is going to be attributed to you, and you're going to make your commission. So it's sometimes dicey on the affiliate side of things, unless you know for sure that the link and the cookies are working properly, because there's different browsers, things are getting updated all the time. So it's a little bit more difficult.
And Francesca, I'll come back to you, then I'll go to Joe. Can I get your thoughts on, like, we've had lots of behind the scenes conversations about this, is really interesting, but like your thoughts on pay to post, the affiliate, the what Brent's doing, how do you like to work with brands? And if you were working, maybe this is a better way of putting the question this way, if you were working for a brand, knowing what you know, how would you design a campaign with talent? Do you know what I mean? Would it be affiliates? Would it be setting them up on their own store? Would it be pay to post, or would it be a mixture of all of the above? Can you just talk us through a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's all of the above. You've got to recognize when a talent can move units, and affiliates. It's really fascinating, because obviously every time we talk, back in the day, affiliates really had their moment. It's this industry was all kind of very blogger heavy, and everyone had blog posts, and affiliates were the go-to marketing for this industry. And it's evolved, become more video focused, and become more integration of product within content. And it's really interesting to hear, because if you look over into China, and you can see all the platforms over here, they are now adopting shopping tools. And to future-proof yourself, it's about how can you get rid of all of the barriers to purchasing, and the quicker and more efficient you can make that process, the better. We've got very little patience. We're consuming so much. I think you consume around 34 gigabytes of data a day, so that's quite a lot of information being thrown at you, and trying to discern what's fact and fiction and what needs to be retained, which is why if you do want to make a sale, it does need to be as seamless as possible. But in terms of a campaign, I would do an amalgamation of all of them. I'm so sorry. But again, it's about identifying in that moment what you need, and could you take that talent and put them across all those different surfaces.
And I don't really want to go into this in too much depth, but in terms of influencers trying to set their own brands up, and I know you're managing some talent with that. I mean, can you briefly give us a response to that? I mean, we had a chat before we went live about this, and how the difficulty level of trying to do this. But can I just get your thoughts on that a little bit?
Yeah, it's the future. I think specifically talent coming up with their own gaps in the market, or their own version. Even if you look at like Huda Beauty and Kylie Jenner, you can see this happening on a much bigger scale. But that direct to consumer e-commerce solution is what we're seeing more and more of. And I think it's just an evolution of the door-to-door salesman, or even the Avon ladies that used to come round. And it's a much better way of shopping the high street. Especially COVID's accelerated it, from walking down the high street and window shopping and going in and buying what you want. Whereas here you're on your phone doing exactly the same thing. And if you're seeing brands really take on the persona of human values that you would associate with emotion, and brands are having to communicate via their social media as if they were a human being, and the consumer finds where their brands align with those people. And there's no one better doing that than people with digital followings and doing it day to day as themselves. So it's just about replicating their personal values that they're putting out as a personality, and putting that into a brand, and tapping into a community that need that product, need or want, I will say.
Okay, just bring a couple of questions in here. So there's one off Reka here. Do you have a list of influencers on your agency, and provide advice to who is best to work with based on your brand image product? I'm not sure what the best thing is to do with that. I don't know if either of you can drop a web link in there for her, of the talent on both of your agencies or not, or maybe we can do that afterwards. If not, they can email us and we can link you to. Joe, just give us your thoughts then on best ways of working with talent, then, whether it be, or should, would it be through affiliates, or I mean, I'm assuming pay to post is always going to be around because obviously they're offering a particular content generating service with that. But can you just elaborate, if you were sort of running this for a brand, how would you design it?
Yeah, 100%. And I think obviously affiliates are amazing and have been an amazing tool. And as Francesca said, they were huge in the blogging space. And as that's evolved more into content, it still allows a direct entry for somebody to use their stories and get straight to that product. So it is an amazing service, but as we know, sort of content is huge at the moment. So paying to post will allow sort of that talent to curate their own content, which sits on their feed. Then they can obviously include your swipe ups, etc. within stories, but that content, which can then be repurposed onto sort of the client's channels, is something that is massively, massively valuable, and that user generated content inside through. So I think, obviously, as Francesca said, and Brent, people setting up their own stores is the future. People using their audience and sort of using what they created over sort of many, many years, and it's a progression in their career as well. So it's a super exciting time, and I definitely don't think that's going to slow down. But paid posts will always be a huge factor, and I think just in terms of the ways to work with an influencer, it's having that longevity and seeing it as a relationship. Like Francesca said, it's a collaboration. It's not a service. Allow the talent to curate the content in their way, which speaks best to their audience. They're not going to want to put something out there that they don't think speaks to their audience. So having that relationship, and whilst the brief is obviously provided, allowing them to speak to their audience in their way, which they think will be sort of most successful, because that is how we think it's sort of beneficial for all parties.
It is fascinating. It really is fascinating. We haven't got enough time to go into it, but it's like, what is an influencer anymore now? It's like there are sort of stores out there that I look at or shop at, or often not look at. I don't know, stores like ROI, for example. It's got quite a decent following of people into that thing. It's like they're as much an influencer as a retailer. It just so happens that their retail thing is the way they make their money, you know. But then on the other end of the scale, you get someone who just is almost a stylist. I mean, what is an influencer anymore? Where's it going? I'm not sure if Francesca and I had this conversation, but I was speaking to someone else the other day. You're going to have, most brands are going to have literally, they can have their own e-commerce store. That's their shop window. Then they're just going to work with various different influencers, be them retailers, be those, you know, whatever that spectrum is. And that's kind of going to be the future. And there's even talk about shop frontages now on high streets becoming more customer acquisitions, places of customer acquisitions than necessarily places to retail, because obviously you can brand up that storefront in the way you can. Brent, I'm just going to come over to you because actually no, I'm not. I'm just going to read out another question. I've got a question here from where was it? I did see it. As a new brand, what's the best way to approach and build relationships with influencers? Who'd like to pick that up? Francesca?
Probably I was going to say, Joe, you're probably closer to it than I am.
Absolutely. So I would say initially, the most important thing to do is to know your brand inside out, have a clear brand identity, and even sort of a brand Bible, which will then allow you to approach the right people. So you can obviously do this completely on your own, or work with an agency as we do. We sort of have a large network and have the technology available to suggest the right people and have an ongoing conversation about where your values lie, what are you looking to achieve, what size of campaign do you want to get started with, and then I would rely on having those relationships already. So as a company, we have relationships with agencies and influencers sort of across the world, and we utilize them to join the brand with the influencer, so creating that relationship sort of between us. Obviously, a brand is absolutely fine to go out and do this themselves. It's just dipping, like I said, getting into the market initially and just immersing yourself in it can be a whole new world. So I would say doing as much research as possible on who you're working with, knowing the industry, knowing where you're looking to sort of move towards as well.
In my experience, a lot of design teams know which influencers are a good fit for their brand anyway, because they often will follow them or follow that person. When I say that person, it could be an influencer in this traditional sense, or it could be a store. Or most of the designers I know often not know exactly where their brand fits anyway, if you know what I mean. Sometimes it could be just a case of tapping into your own internal team, perhaps, you know.
Absolutely. So it's sort of about finding someone that represents your customer and will speak to your customer in the best way. So if you have a talent who has 1 million followers or 500,000 or less, if they are representing your brand and they have that sort of affinity, even if you haven't worked with them before, but that aligns well, then that's going to be the perfect way to move forward.
Brilliant. Just one other question here from Sophie then. What do you see as the pros and cons to both short-term contracts, i.e. pay for post, the long-term contracts, partnerships? Sort of looking at Francesca for that one, or unless Joe, you've got something to say on it. Francesca, do you want to pick that one up?
Yeah, definitely. Short term, like there's a need for the both of them, and they have their individual pros and cons. I would say short term definitely allows you to dip your toe in the water, to create some amazing content for maybe a one-off campaign. But if you're looking to really cement the values and cement your objectives, it has to be omnipresent. And I'm just seeing more and more. So we say we look after talent. We don't say influencers, because we believe influence is a product of what good talent, great talent is. And that the objectives isn't to get you to pay. The objective is to educate or entertain and get you to understand those things. And it just completely depends on the consumer, how quickly they can make that decision and how affordable the product is as well. I would say if it's a more of a bigger long-term investment purchase, go longer. If it's a quick reactive thing, it's like going back to marketing and like figuring out what fits your objectives better. But with long term, there's just so much you can do. And I think people think of influencer marketing and just think of their social media platforms. We're seeing more and more, specifically more with the bigger brands, the more parenting companies, them coming to us and trying to figure out how you can use that talent in multiple platforms. So it could be that you take someone like Talia Ma, who we represent, who is a gamer but also a singer. Is there an opportunity to, yes, of course, take over her social media and do posts on there, but you could do a shoot as a brand. You taking some really great branded content, whack it on a billboard, put it on TV, like you put it in print. You can, if someone has come up with a great format and a show idea, why don't you collaborate and go to a network or a broadcaster and together sell that show in? And it could be really cementing that brand's values, utilizing the talent. And I think that's definitely something we're going to see more and more of, and would be a long-term pro. But sometimes you don't have the budgets to do those sorts of things. So it's about really finding out where you sit on that scale.
It's really fascinating, that, Francesca. I was talking yesterday to a media buying agency, and they've said since the lockdown last year, obviously certain media media is obviously not as performing as well as it was, and that out of home is obviously dropped off of it because obviously people aren't going to work as much. But one of the things he said that's been really good is has been TV, but also the daytime slots, believe it or not.
Wow. Yeah,
because everybody's working from
home.
I
was going to say it should be working.
You know, it's on in the background. It's on in the background. It's you know. But he was saying, like, you know, and that's quite interesting. You should mention that, and he should mention that at the same sort of time. It's actually just, you know, like TV's still there. People forget about TV as a well, look at Love Island and
yeah, and there's also, because we're at the inception and the embryo stages of brands utilizing talent off, like digital first talent off of those platforms. People, their audience and the industry gets so excited when they see that talent on a different medium. Just the kind of user generated content of I don't know if you've seen Mrs. Hinch's P&G advert go out on TV. People are so happy for her that they're taking pictures, they're screenshotting it, they're sharing it on social media. It's obviously her voice is becoming so recognizable now that for someone who doesn't want to put their face out there and wants to just show off what she's doing rather than what she looks like, it's a great route for her to go down. So it is about sweating the assets out and seeing like how one opportunity can go so far.
Okay, I've just want to bring in one more question. I'm going to go to Brent because I know Brent's got a slide he wants to show us. But this one is from Priya. What would you recommend for brands looking to continue to drive strong ROI, traffic and revenue, but looking to increase influencer content on platforms such as TikTok and Pinterest, which are less shoppable than Instagram and YouTube? Who'd like to pick that up? Joe? And then I'll come to Brent after.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're going to see a bit of a shift in that. I think we saw the other day that TikTok are actually implementing an e-commerce system in, so TikTok will be shoppable soon. I think Pinterest is starting to head down that route as well. So in terms of TikTok, it's a whole new world, but it's extremely exciting, and you will see ROI on there because the Gen Z audiences, we need to be sort of following their trends and keeping an eye on it. Obviously, it's going to completely depend on your product. We'll see a lot of the real style fashion hauls through which perform extremely well on Instagram, translating across to TikTok and seeing massive growth on there. But then obviously your challenge is if you get creative with it on TikTok, then you're going to see extreme brand exposure. If you can align your product with a TikTok challenge or a song that is then created user-generated content, and we just see that go absolutely viral, then that's hugely beneficial. I think with TikTok, it's about being creative. So you can show off the product extremely well, just sort of in a basic style, but get creative with it, have a strategy around it and try and sort of spread the message that way.
Well, I suppose it follows on what Francesca just said. It's not just about one platform, it's having a multi-platform approach. It's not just the big tech businesses, your TV, why not an event, blogs are still there, SEO is still valuable, that sort of stuff. Brent, do you have anything to add to that at all? Or?
Yeah, I agree with both Francesca and Joe. I think all the platforms are, if they're not already shoppable, they soon will be shoppable, because these platforms, Facebook started off that, there was nothing paid on Facebook. It was just a social media, social network within a university. And as each platform grows, there's going to be a revenue model that goes behind it. And I think it's going to turn into individual shopping experiences for the talent and influencers that are on them.
And then in terms, just to go back to sort of setting up a store, because obviously you've got a slide here you wanted to just talk us a little bit. Can you just talk through the process of how brands or how influencers can do that in the most easiest way? I believe you've got a slide here that
yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't necessarily know what drop shipping is, and one of the reasons we started eTail 21 is that we found that there was a need in the market where talent and influencers wanted to sell and brands wanted to have their products sold, but there was no connection to sync up the inventory, the orders, and have an easy way for talent or an online retailer to be able to import those products and have them updated in real time on their store. So if you look at the graphic, you can see that if someone wants to sell something from a supplier or a brand, our platform can add the product information, pictures, prices, and all that in one click will get into the retailer, influencer, talent shop and keep up to date. And then when an order comes in, then it comes back right towards the supplier who sends it off to the customer. So we wanted to come up with a seamless way to be able to help brands have access to talent and influencers and sell their products. And then on the inverse is to allow the talent to be able to offer these brands and not have to worry from the technical side of things. Because we work on Shopify and Magento and different platforms, and it can get very confusing for talent who want to offer these products, but the technical side of things gets in the way. And so that's where we come in.
Thank you for that. I'm going to bring up another poll actually. Scarlett, if you're still there, I'm not making a cup of tea. Do you want to bring up the next poll, because I want to talk a little bit about actual hardcore ROI here, and because obviously that's the whole name of it. So for all of you out there involved in this, can you just give us your thoughts to this? So where does the best ROI come from? From paying influencers fixed fee to post, from the use of affiliate marketing, from allowing influencers to sell products on their own stores, partnering with influencers on a profit share basis, or none of the above? And if you do click none of the above, if you would maybe put your comments in the chat box so we can see where you believe the best ROI comes from. So yeah, we'll just let people vote now. So and then we'll just Joe, do you want to just elaborate a little bit where you find the best ROI comes from with your clients?
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the things we need to think about is sort of who you're looking to work with. If you have a clear objective, if you have a clear person in your head that is you want to work with, if they're of a certain level, I think you'll struggle to bring them on board without sort of some sort of fixed fee. This may be added on to a profit share or sort of an affiliate side of things onto it. But so where we're looking, and depending, like I said, who we're looking to work with, you can have a sort of another basis where affiliate marketing will work extremely well for you on a sort of smaller scale. If you're working with micro influencers and people of a lesser following, but who are extremely effective as well, then I think you're going to see great ROI in terms of the affiliate marketing. But for us, depending on who you're looking to work with, I think paid posts are quite essential to maintaining you're going to target the right people.
Oh, that's interesting. That came, you just finished
just
that and this just came out. There you go. Have you been in the background there, Joe, just voting?
Voting.
Just for the sake of clarity, and none of the panelists, myself included, could vote. So for some reason, it doesn't allow us to do it. Oh, that's interesting. So paying, I suppose if you're paying people to do a job, they're going to do a job, aren't they, I guess? Affiliate marketing next, and then obviously interesting. Oh, partnering with influencers on profit share basis. Okay, we've got any comments? If anybody else adding, none of the above. Gifting, obviously gifting, no investment and same amount of coverage. Following on what you've just said, Joe, obviously that's only going to work with micro influencers and people who aren't, aren't career influencers, should we say? Would that be right? Or
yeah, that's right, and it's an amazing way to get content as well. Obviously working with the right people who do create amazing content on a gifted basis does prove extremely effective for brands, but you just won't see the same potential level of reach that you might do with sort of paid posts. And depending on the objectives of your campaign, if it is on a content basis and you're looking for that, then it's definitely an effective method as well.
Okay, I'm just going to bring Francesca in now and get your thoughts on ROI then, if you want to sort of like, if someone's coming to you I mean, obviously it's all about ROI, but do you want to just elaborate where you feel the best way to design a campaign is with your talent to make sure that clients get the best ROI out of it? Perhaps some examples.
Yeah, echoing what Joe said really, but I think you're going to see a rise in licensing, and that's like we're bringing in talent to maybe do a capsule collection or co-designing something together which sits on the branded platform. But then the beauty of doing that is that you've both got skin in the game, and you have to offer royalties as a brand to that talent. And the way that you shift units is the more the talent posts, the more they speak about it, they obviously shift more of their units, and in turn obviously get royalties off the back of it. You can put minimum guarantees in there as well. So you can say, if you get X amount, we'll guarantee you X amount, but if you surpass that, then great. If you don't, then you've at least got your minimum guarantee and it covers your time for co-designing the products. I can't think of real life examples off the top of my head. I don't know why they've all gone. But I do think it's about establishing and just figuring it out together what would suit best.
Brent?
Yeah, I was just going to agree with Francesca. A lot of our influencers who've had a great success on our shops the collaborations or the co-branded items that they've created with the brands. The influencer I was talking about, Isabel, she did a co-brand with a jewelry brand in North America, and as soon as it was co-branded, it flew out of her store. Another influencer sold candles, and you wouldn't think candles would be a big seller, but it was a collaboration, and we sold thousands and thousands of dollars worth of candles, you know, in a very short amount of time. And it was a big surprise. So I think the collaborations, when as Francesca said, they both have skin in the game, and it's in their best interest to both promote it, can be very, very successful.
It's almost kind of a licensing sort of deal structure, isn't it, really? In many respects, the influencer gets guaranteed a minimum fee and then a percentage on top of that. So,
and it's in their best interest to promote it because it's their name, it's their, you know, it has their name on it as well and their brand. So it's win-win all around.
Mm-hmm. Do you get a lot of the influencers on your platform then, Brent? Do a lot of the brands that use it, do they pay them to post as well as giving them a cut of the margin, or is it?
It's a mix. I don't know if there's one perfect way. I mean, obviously, the way that eTail 21 works is with having a shop and promoting your brand. However, I don't know whether 100% paid posts are going to be something that anyone would recommend. I don't know whether Joe or Francesca, you think that if it's all paid posts, does someone's feed start looking a little bit more like a billboard, and it has to be sort of a mixed approach as opposed to all paid posts? What do you guys think about that?
Interesting question. Who wants to pick that up?
I think, yeah, no, 100%. I think the buzzword at the moment, I think it has been for probably the last 2 years, and it's only getting more and more, is the buzzword is authenticity. And I think people have to be showing their real lives as well. So if it is only paid posts, then people do question that, and having that aspect of real and allowing people to see what the talent is getting up to on a day-to-day basis when it's not necessarily something they're being paid to do is super important, and audiences are more and more aware of that at the moment. So it's definitely a factor, and having a good middle ground of both, whereby the talent is trusted by the audience and they know that if they're posting something, it is genuinely something that they would wear or they would promote or they do use, is super important. And I think having that trust and finding the right talent for that is quite an important factor.
It's interesting because there's one in the chat box, a question from Roxanne about that. Can you comment on the shift of consumers aren't seeing influencers authentic? For example, the introduction of #ad putting people off purchases. Does anyone want to pick that up? Oh, you kind of have sort of touched upon it a bit, Joe, but do you want to add to that, Francesca, at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge topic, disclaiming, and you have to disclaim for any kind of, if any value has exchanged, and if that's a gifted item, then you still have to disclaim. I can guarantee you that obviously the putting ad on, there is this kind of taboo topic with outlook on seeing the word ad on someone's screen. But I think we've just, because we're in it's such an infancy with, I know it's 10 years on, but it's still in its infancy, because you become so au fait with seeing the advertorial in the corner of a magazine versus the PP on TV, and when you're listening to a radio play. So it's essential for transparency. So they definitely have to do it. And I think we're going to move away from not purchasing because you see the word ad, because ad can cover an affiliate, could cover whether they've been gifted it. You have to put ad if you've worked with that person, that brand within the last 12 months. So yes, they might have worked within the last 12 months, they might continue to use that product, but they still have to disclaim it as ad. So it's almost maybe an education process that I don't know why people are put off by ad. I'm certainly not, because I know that talent on our books would not promote a brand unless because they'll just lose their transparency and the trust with their audience. One one dodgy move can unravel years of hard work.
Jessica, thanks. And in the interest of transparency, I just want to let everybody know that Brent and the Fashion Network and eTail21 have obviously partnered on a collaborative project. It's not, this webinar isn't sponsored by eTail21, but we are partnered on. So if any brands are or any influencers are looking at setting up their own store, or brands looking to work with influencers who on a basis, then just in the interest of transparency. Right, we're coming towards the end now, and there's some interesting comments and questions here. Let's have a look. Helen is driven mad by the fact that influencers don't correctly label their post as ad. Teens don't care. In my industry, people are not highly paid, so need to support their income with influencer marketing. There's another one here from Roxanne. I think we've just talked on that. Hill, you're in the style model, and it really does work. I'm assuming you mean the partnerships. If you do, can you just elaborate on that? There is a comment here about drop shipping. I think maybe there's some confusion perhaps about what drop shipping is, but Brent, someone's Saf's written here, drop shipping is really shunned upon nowadays. There's more of a shift towards sustainability and ethical labor. I'm not sure.
Yeah, drop shipping, it really depends on the brand in terms of anything dodgy about it. I mean, in the simplest form, drop shipping is basically, as I mentioned earlier, an order goes through our platform and goes to the brand who ships it out. And it really depends on the brand and their reputation on the actual product that's being sold. So I don't guess quite understand the question.
And so Hill's just replied again, I do mean that in the style pays royalties to its okay. So in the style pays royalties to its influencers, so the more they sell of their collection, the more they earn, is why Lorna Lux stays with them. Okay, cool. Nice little bit of insights. Right, we're coming to the end of the webinar, so I just want to get your sort of like, I'm doing a bit of futurology here, so I just might start with Joe first. Do you want to just give us your thoughts on where you feel the whole influencer marketing thing's going for the next 12? I'm going to do the next 12 months because I think things change so quickly. So just give us some sort of trends and ways of working that you're keeping an eye on.
100%. Well, I think we saw a massive shift with the pandemic and everything moving away from how it was traditionally, even though we're still in our infancy, and a lot of advertisers moving to talent shooting their own content at home and sending that in, where this would all usually be done in a studio. But what I'm thinking is when life comes back to normal, people are going to be looking for those sort of live experiences and live events again. There's a reason why brands wanted to have a presence at festivals all the time and go away and shoot their content abroad, because it does bring people in, it does draw an audience in, and it gives sort of a real voice and a narrative behind that. So, I mean, I really hope that we go back to what we were doing before and having those live events and live experiences. But it's going to be a really interesting time to see what shift the whole pandemic has caused.
See, I can see live events coming back with a vengeance. With a lot of technology wrapped around it as well, actually. That's my opinion. I'm not. Brent, do you want to give us your thoughts on the next 12 months in terms of this field, influencer marketing?
Yeah, I think the pandemic has forced a lot of brands to rethink their online strategy. And for a time, it was all online. And yeah, in the next 12 months, we're going to go back to in-person stuff. But the stores that we've set up, I think, are going to be here to stay, and the audience that has moved online is going to still continue to stay online. And I think it'll be a little bit more of a balanced mix in the next 12 months between online and offline. Time will tell.
Thank you. And Francesca, you can have last words. So give us your thoughts on.
I'll think of something different now. A little pressure. I would say in the next 12 months, CMOs and anyone working in marketing need to be flexible, reactive, and calm, because we're going to see the emergence of live come back into our lives, but something might throw a spanner in the works. And I think having a really great collaborative conversation with the person that you're working with, if it's a talent, of saying, hey, so and so's happened, we're no longer able to do this live event, there's been something that's happened, so how can we do something different, or how can we react to this bit of information? So I think we do need to hold each other a little bit, and work collaboratively together to kind of weather change.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Thank you all for your insights. It's a shame we couldn't go on talking about this, because I find this quite an interesting topic. If anybody wants to get hold of any Francesca or Joe, you've put the web link in there, haven't you? Is there a sort of agency email they can get hold of? Do you want to pop that in the chat, or would you like us to disseminate that to the delegates afterwards? It's up to you. You can pop it in the chat as well now if you've got a catch-all email. Brett, obviously, if anyone wants to get hold of you, so I can get in touch.
I'll put it in the chat as well. Yeah,
put it in the chat, or they can get in touch through us. And I think that's about it. Normally at this sort of junction, we'd have a round of applause from everybody in the audience, and we go for a glass of vino in the other room. But unfortunately, we're going to have to wait a few more months. For all the guys and the delegates here today, just stay tuned to both. If you're not on our email list, you might want to sign up. It's thefashionnetwork.co.uk. And we have an online networking community now where you can connect with other members. And the busiest social channel for us is LinkedIn. So look at our LinkedIn page. We're constantly putting content on there every day, and further events will be published on there, and also on our website and on our email mailer. So guys, just thank you very much for your time and effort, and hope to see you all again soon. So thank you. Cheers.
Likewise. Thank you very much. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
How do I add this in? Right.